The 2025 NFL season head coaching ranks will see a turnaround of almost 25%, with 7 out of 32 teams bringing in who they believe is the guy that is going to lead them to the promised land. Ben Johnson in Chicago, Brian Schottenheimer in Dallas, Liam Cohen in Jacksonville, Pete Carroll in Las Vegas, Mike Vrabel in New England, Aaron Glenn with the Jets, and probably Kellen Moore in New Orleans. All of these guys bring various levels of hope to their organizations, but hope is there to be found, as many coaches have brought forth massive improvements in their first season with a team. Today, we will be counting down the 25 best single-season improvements by an NFL team in their first year with a new head coach during the Super Bowl era. And we will be doing that by using C-Score, this channel's metric for determining the overall quality of every single NFL team during that same Super Bowl era. For a deeper explanation of C-Score, be sure to check out the description of this video. We're talking about improvement here, so we'll be taking the C-Score from the season before and subtracting it from the C-Score of the new coach's first season. The higher that number, the higher that season will rank. Just to be clear, this list does not only include rookie head coaches, just coaches in their first full season with a team. That means that interim coaches who become the full-time coach will have their interim stint ignored. Thank you for joining us today. We are ready to roll. At number 25 is Dave McGinnis of the Arizona Cardinals from the seasons 2000 to 2001. In 2000, the head coach was Vince Tobin. He was fired after 7 games, wherein Dave McGinnis was named the interim coach, keeping his job for 2001. In 2000, the Cardinals were 3-13, last in the NFC East with a C-score of -37.438. This season in 2001, they moved up to -10.358. Now they were 7-9, finishing 4th in the NFC East out of 5 teams, but the team was far less of a train wreck. Their total C-score improvement is 27.08. As for McGinnis, he lasted as head coach of the Cardinals until 2003, after which he did go into the assistant ranks, but was never a head coach again. Coming in at number 24 is Jeff Fisher of the St. Louis Rams, covering the seasons of 2011 and 2012. In 2011, the head coach was Steve Spagnuolo, who famously had a very difficult time there. They were 2-14 in 2011, finishing dead last in the NFC West with a C-score of -27.605. The improvement in 2012 saw the Rams go to -0.524. They did go 7-8-1, climbing up to 3rd place in the West, and their point differential changed from -214 to -49. Their C-score improvement is 27.081, which is exactly 0.001 points better than the previous entry. Fisher, the longtime head coach of the Titans, lasted until 2016, the season the Rams moved back to LA, but he was fired with 3 games left in the season. He has since dabbled in various positions with the UFL and the Arena Football League. Time for 23rd place, we have Chuck Fairbanks of the New England Patriots over the seasons of 1972 and 1973. In 1972, the Patriots were coached by John Mazur, who resigned during the season due to health issues. Phil Bankston then took over as interim coach for the rest of the year. They finished 3-11, finishing last in the AFC East with a dreadful C-score of -42.022. It was easy to improve from that number, and Fairbanks got them up to -14.911 in 73. They ended the season at 5-9, 3rd place in the AFC East, only a 2-game improvement from the season before, but their point differential went from -254 to to -42, a better than 200-point improvement. Their C-score this season increased by 27.111. Now, Fairbanks wound up making the Patriots a pretty good team, but a big brouhaha after the 1978 season led to him leaving the NFL ranks altogether and becoming the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes. It's the New England Patriots again at number 22, and we just discussed John Mazur's bad 72 season, but he did well in transitioning the Patriots from 1970 to 1971. In 1970, the still Boston Patriots finished 2-12, last in the AFC East, with a C-score of -40.546. Head coach Clive Rush resigned after 7 games, where Mazur took over as interim coach. In 1971, they were 6-8, finishing 3rd in the AFC East, going from dead last in both points scored and points allowed to 19th and 21st respectively, all against a harder schedule. They wound up improving in C-score by 27.152 points. We covered Mazur earlier. He resigned during 1973, but he did remain an assistant coach in the NFL until 1980. Alright, we're getting a little more modern for our number 21 entry. This is Ron Rivera of the Carolina Panthers from 2010 to 2011. In the previous season, the head coach was John Fox. Having led the team to the Super Bowl in 2003, his contract was not renewed. That'll be because of their 2-14 record, finishing last in the NFC South and registering a C-score of -33.156. In Rivera's first season, they remained in the negative, but were much better at -4.53. They finished 6-10, climbed out of the South Division cellar and finishing 3rd, going from a -212 to a -21 in point differential, and with the addition of rookie quarterback Cam Newton, they brought some excitement to the team. They improved their C-score by 28.626. The Panthers showed continued improvement under Rivera, culminating in a Super Bowl appearance in 2015. But he was fired late in the 29 season by beloved Panthers owner David Tepper. Rivera went on to coach the Washington football team / Commanders between 2020 and 2023, but he saw far less success. We enter the top 20 with Indianapolis Colts head coach Ted Marchibroda. These are the seasons between 1991 and 1992. Ron Meyer was fired 5 games into the 91 season, where he did not win a single game. Rick Venturi took over as interim coach. He was able to nab 1 victory, as the Colts finished 1-15, finishing last in the AFC East and ranking as C-Score's worst ever non-expansion team at -44.725. The Colts in 1992 put up a C-score of -17.084. Nothing special overall. They did finish 9-7 and 3rd in the AFC East. That record is very flattering, but it was still a massive improvement. That is shown in their C-score jump of 28.641. Despite making it to the AFC Championship game in 1995, Marchibroda and Colts ownership could not come to terms on a new contract, so he left and returned to Baltimore in 1996 as the head coach of the Ravens. At number 19, we have maybe a lesser-known name in Lehman Bennett. His stint is with the Atlanta Falcons. This covers the 1976 and 1977 seasons. Marion Campbell led the way in 76, for 5 games when he got fired. Pat Pepler actually took over as interim coach. That season they finished 4-10, good for 4th in the NFC West, thanks to the temporary placement of the Seattle Seahawks as an expansion team in the division. Their C-score was -26.826. They actually moved up to a positive C-score, the first positive C-score we've seen on this list, at 2.988. However, their record was only 7-7, which was good for 2nd in the NFC West. This team was known for the grits blitz defense, as they only allowed 129 points in 14 games and 1,384 pass yards. That is 9 points per game and fewer than 100 passing yards per game. They improved by a total of 29.814. Bennett made it to the 1982 season, after which he was fired as the only head coach in franchise history with a winning record. He lasted 2 more seasons as a head coach, 2 very bad seasons in Tampa Bay. If Leeman Bennett was a lesser known name, this is perhaps the best known name. At number 18 is Bill Belichick as head coach of the Cleveland Browns. These are the 1990 and 1991 seasons. In 1990, Bud Carson was the head coach, but he got fired after 9 games, wherein Jim Schaffner became the interim head coach. They were 3-13, last place in the AFC Central, with a C-score of negative 33.14. This season in 1991, their C-score moved up to negative 2.52. Their 6-10 record got them 3rd place in the AFC Central, but their point differential had a massive upgrade from negative 234 to just negative 5. Belichick got this C-score up by 30.62 points. Belichick had turned the Browns into winners again when they short-sightedly fired him, making him the scapegoat over the move to Baltimore and the ensuing fallout that season. He then, of course, became the Patriots head coach between 2000 and 2023, and will now, in 2025, be the head coach at North Carolina. Many franchises are ripe for improvement, such as the Jacksonville Jaguars, where Doug Marrone ranks here at number 17 for the seasons covering 2016 and 2017. In 2016, the head coach was Gus Bradley, but he was fired with 2 games remaining. Doug Marrone himself took over as the interim coach before getting the permanent job in 2017. He took over a team that finished 3-13, last in the AFC South, with a C-score of negative 14.325. That C-score flipped in the other direction and then some. In 2017, they put up a 16.642. Now, this was a banner season for Jacksonville, also known as Saxonville. They are also the first team on this list to have made the playoffs, going 10-6, winning 2 playoff games, before getting to the AFC title game, a game they probably should have won, which would have sent them to the Super Bowl. Their C-score improvement breaks the 30-point barrier at 30.967. It didn't take long for the Jags to go right back to bad, but Marrone had enough goodwill to last through the end of 2020. It would be pretty surprising if he ever became an NFL head coach again. For the second time, we have back-to-back entries with the same team. At number 16 is Doug Peterson of the Jacksonville Jaguars in the seasons of 2021 and 2022. Urban Meyer was the head coach in 2021, and he couldn't even do a full one and done. He was, of course, a massive disaster, getting fired with 4 games remaining in the season, with Darren Bevel, he of the throw the ball at the goal line in Super Bowl 49, took over as interim for the last 4 games. That team was 3-14, finishing last in the AFC South with a C-score of negative 28.253. The C-score in 2022 was well improved to 4.066. They went 9-8, not an incredible record, but good enough to complete a worst to first as AFC South champions. They had a massive comeback victory in the wildcard round over the Chargers before becoming fodder for the Chiefs in the following round. Their improvement, though, was 32.319 points in C-score. The Jags had a terrible 2024 season, which proved to be Peterson's undoing. He was fired, although ownership in Jacksonville will remain a problem. Peterson should catch on somewhere else in some role. We've come to number 15, where we find Frank Reich of the Indianapolis Colts. 2017 and 2018 are the seasons we're looking at. 2017 was the end of Chuck Pagano's 6-year run in Indy. This team went 4-12, finishing third in the AFC South on a tiebreaker with the Texans, and putting up a C-score of negative 25.001. In 2018, they moved their C-score up to 8.185. This came with a 10-6 record, a second place finish in the South, and a 6th seed in the playoffs. They then won at the division champion Houston Texans before losing the following week at Kansas City. They improved their C-score by 33.186. Reich remained as head coach of the Colts into the 2022 season, but he was fired after 9 games. The Carolina Panthers scooped him up in 2023, where he was fired after 11 games, making him the first ever NFL head coach to be fired mid-season in back-to-back seasons. We creep closer to the top 10, where at number 14 we find Butch Davis, head coach of the Cleveland Browns, this covering the seasons of 2000 and 2001. In 2000, the head coach was Chris Palmer. He was the head coach of the Browns for the first 2 years of their return, but results were very poor. They were 3-13, finishing 6th place in the 6-team AFC Central with a C-score of negative 36.678. Davis got that C-score all the way up to negative 3.335. Their record improved to 7-9. They got to 3rd place in the Central, and they went from a negative 258 point differential and just over 10 points per game scored to a point differential of negative 34 and almost 18 points scored per game. That improvement in total, 33.343. They were in the playoffs the following season, losing a heartbreaker to Pittsburgh, and as a franchise, they didn't make it again until 2020. Davis lasted until 2004, and although he never was a head coach in the NFL again, he did have head coaching stints in college with North Carolina and Florida International. We've made it to the midway point of the countdown. We're at number 13. The head coach here is Jim Haslett. The team is the New Orleans Saints, and the seasons are 1999 and 2000. The head coach the previous season was Mike Ditka. After 3 years of mostly disastrous results and magazine covers, he was shown the door. They had gone 3-13 for last in the NFC West with a C-score of negative 30.394. In 2000, they moved that into the positive realm, getting a 3.401. They also moved up to 10-6 and won the NFC West. They then won their first ever playoff game over the defending champion Rams. They did lose at Minnesota the following week. In all, they improved their C-score by 33.795. Haslett made it all the way to the end of the 2005 season. He then became defensive coordinator of the Rams, where he was the interim coach to end the 2008 season. He's had various assistant jobs since, including head coaching jobs in the UFL and the XFL. We've got another big name in the NFL coaching ranks here at number 12. This is Bill Parcells with the New York Jets, covering the seasons of 1996 and 1997. The head coach in 1996 was Rich Kotite. Not much more needs to be said. They finished 1-15, which was last in the AFC East, and a C-score of 27.732. In his first season in 97, Parcells had him up to a 7.054. They finished 9-7, 3rd place in the East, and missing out on 2nd place and a playoff spot solely on a tiebreaker. They moved up in C-score by 34.786. After only 3 seasons with the Jets, Bill Parcells retired for the 2nd time in 1999, staying on 1 more season as the GM after Bill Belichick decided he didn't want to coach the team. Also for the 2nd time, he came out of retirement to coach the Cowboys between 2003 and 2006. At the edge of the top 10, at number 11, is Jim Harbaugh from the San Francisco 49ers. These are the 2010 and 2011 seasons. Mike Singletary, himself the interim in 2008, got fired and opened the way for an interim in 2010 with one game left in the season. It was when they were 5-10 and were finally eliminated from the putrid NFC West race. They did finish 6-10, third in the West, with a C-score of negative 13.927. Harbaugh moved them all the way up to 21.413. They were 13-3, champions of the NFC West, and were headed to the playoffs, where they won a crazy game against the Saints. They then hosted the Giants in the NFC title game before losing in overtime. The improvement in C-score here was 35.34 points. They followed this up with a Super Bowl appearance, another title game appearance, but it was all over for Harbaugh in San Francisco after 2014. The man can be a bit of a maniac. Of course, he won a national championship with his alma mater, the Michigan Wolverines, before returning to the NFL last season with the Los Angeles Chargers. Top 10 time, and at number 10 is Chuck Knox in his stint with the Los Angeles Rams, this covering the seasons of 1972 and 1973. Tommy Prothro was the coach in 72, the end of a 2-year stint following George Allen. In that season, they went 6-7-1, only good for third in the NFC West, with a C-score of negative 1.742. This didn't give Knox a whole lot of room to improve, but improve he did, with a C-score of 34.087. They finished 12-2 and won the NFC West, but the playoff rotational system forced them on the road to Dallas, where they lost. They also improved their point differential by 205 points. Their C-score improvement sits at 35.829. Knox had a good run with the Rams, but it ended after 1977. He then went on to coach the Buffalo Bills, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Rams once again. Coming in at number 9 is the most generic name on this list, Mike Smith. As head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, we're looking at the 2007 and 2008 seasons. In 2007, Bobby Petrino was hired as head coach of the Falcons. He didn't quit, he didn't resign. He ditched his team with 3 games remaining, leaving Emmett Thomas as the interim coach. They finished 4-12, dead last in the NFC South, with a C-score of negative 26.112. The Falcons responded well to the overall turmoil of that 2007 team, getting a C-score of 9.846 in 2008. They were 11-5, second in the NFC South, but good enough for a wild card. They did lose at Arizona in the wild card round. That said, they improved their C-score by 35.958. Smith lasted as head coach of the Falcons until after the 2014 season. They made 4 playoff appearances, but only got 1 win. He would go on to add a 3-year stint as defensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Our number 8 entry is easily the most modern on the list, as it comes from a season that is still ongoing. This is Dan Quinn of the Washington Commanders, covering the 2023 and 2024 season. Ron Rivera was head coach of the Commanders for the previous 4 seasons. In that last season, they only won 4 games, going 4-13, finishing last in the NFC East, and coming up with a C-score of 27.124. Washington employed quite a bit of magic this past season, but they were good enough for a 9.819 C-score. They finished second in the NFC East at 12-5, earning a wild card and achieving a massive upset of the season's best team, the Detroit Lions in Detroit. They improved their C-score by nearly 37 points, 36.943 to be exact. Having just finished his first season in charge, we imagine that he'll be around in that position for at least a little while, unless there's some kind of total collapse. We need to go back 50 years for our number 7 entry. The head coach here is Sid Gilman of the Houston Oilers. We're looking at the 1973 and 1974 seasons. Bill Peterson was head coach of the Oilers for only the first 5 games of the season, where Gilman, as general manager, took over as the interim coach. Their final record of 1-13 was of course good enough for last in the AFC Central. Their C-score of -42.821 makes them one of the worst teams in the entire Super Bowl era. Their C-score remained in the negative in 1974, but it moved way up to -5.597. They improved their record to 7-7. They finished second in the Central. They improved their point differential by 202 points, all against a more difficult schedule. This adds up to an improvement of 37.224. This turned out to be Gilman's only full season as head coach. He decided to continue on only as the general manager. Afterward, he did dabble in some assistant coaching. We now visit the Indianapolis Colts for the 3rd time. Our number 6 entry is Ron Meyer, covering the 1986 and 1987 seasons. The previous season's head coach, Rod Dowhower, was fired after an 0-13 start. Meyer took over as the interim coach with a 3-0 record for himself. That left them at 3-13, still last in the AFC East with a C-score of -27.226. Meyer kept it going in 87 with a C-score of 10.202. They went 9-6 during the strike-shortened season, 7-5 not counting replacement player games, and won the AFC East. This was their first playoff appearance in 10 seasons and their first one in Indianapolis, but they lost to the Cleveland Browns. Their improvement in C-score was 37.428. Ron Meyer made it to the 1991 season, where he was fired 5 games in what we already covered was the worst non-expansion team in the history of the Super Bowl era. He then would coach 1 season each in the CFL and the original XFL. Top 5 time, we're getting to the heavy hitters. At number 5 is Sean Payton of the New Orleans Saints. We look here at the 2005 and 6 seasons. This was the end of Jim Haslett's term, as we discussed earlier. This season was marred by the Hurricane Katrina disaster, where the Saints finished 3-13, last in the NFC South with a C-score of -28.469. In 2006, that C-score rose to 10.236. The Saints finished a worst-to-first turnaround, NFC champions at 10-6, and advancing to their first ever NFC championship game, where they did take the loss against the Chicago Bears. All that said, they improved their C-score by 38.705. Payton remained as head coach of the New Orleans Saints all the way to 2021. Minus a 2012 season where he was offensive coordinator at Liberty Christian School in Texas. He is currently the head coach of the Denver Broncos, a job he has held now for 2 seasons. We saw his brother earlier, but Big Brother lands here in the number 4 spot. This is John Harbaugh, head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, with the 2007 and 2008 seasons in focus. Brian Billick was coach of the 07 team, a Super Bowl champion, albeit back in the 2000 season. Here they finished 5-11, last in the AFC North, with a C-score of -17.205. This season, their C-score jumped all the way to 24.901. They didn't go worst to first, but finishing 11-5 and second in the AFC North gave them a wildcard spot. They went to Miami, won that game, went to Tennessee, won that game, but then went to Pittsburgh for the AFC title game and lost. That C-score improvement sees a big jump from our previous entry and gets us into the 40 range at 42.106. Of course, through the 2024 season and seemingly beyond, John Harbaugh is still with Baltimore. He has won a Super Bowl, he is the second longest current tenured head coach, and he has one of the best resumes of all time. At number 3, we get our 4th visit with the Colts and our 2nd visit with Ted Marchibroda. These are the Baltimore Colts, and we're looking at 1974 and 1975. Howard Schnellenberger was fired 3 games into the 74 season over a personnel dispute with the team owner. General manager Joe Thomas took over as the interim. They were 2-12, finishing last in the AFC East with a C-score of negative 25.387. They turned that all the way around in 1975 to a 20.871. This season is known as the Miracle on 33rd Street. After starting 1-4, they finished 10-4, won the AFC East, but lost to the defending and impending Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers. We get another big jump in C-score improvement, this time by more than 4 full points, with the Colts going up by 46.258. We already covered Marchibroda's other Colts stint, where he lasted until 1979. When he returned to Baltimore, this time as coach of the Ravens, he lasted 3 seasons until 1998. Taking up the number 2 spot is Sean McVay, who at 30 years old was hired as head coach of the Los Angeles Rams. These are the seasons between 2016 and 2017. As we mentioned earlier, Jeff Fisher was head coach in 2016 until the final 3 games, where John Fossil took over as the interim head coach. This saw a 4-12 finish, a 3rd place finish in the NFC West, thank you to the 49ers for that one, and a C-score of negative 27.021. McVay had him humming in 2017, finishing with a C-score of 21.221. They finished 11-5, winning the NFC West, but losing in the first round of the playoffs to the Falcons. They went from 23rd in points allowed to 12th, and astonishingly went from last to 1st in points scored. That drove a C-score improvement of 48.242. McVay, of course, is still with the Rams. He has won a Super Bowl, he has coached in another, and he is steadily climbing the all-time coaching ranks. And he won't even turn 40 years old until the 2025-2026 NFL playoffs, during which time he'll surely be planning on coaching at least a couple of games. But taking the number 1 spot is Andy Reid, head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. We're looking at the 2012 and 2013 seasons. Romeo Crennel was head coach in 2012, where he endured some difficult times off the field. They went 2-14, finishing last in the AFC West, conjuring up a C-score of negative 34.294. Andy had them up to 11-5 the following season, good enough for 2nd place in the West and a wild card spot, where they lost a silly little game to the Indianapolis Colts. This is more than just the biggest C-score improvement for a first-year coach. It's the biggest C-score improvement of any kind during the entire Super Bowl era, as they moved up by 48.838 points. Of course, Andy Reid is still right there on the Kansas City sideline. He has won 3 Super Bowl rings, including the last 2. They are the first team, and he is the first head coach to ever win back-to-back Super Bowls and make it back for a crack at a 3rd. Within the week, he will attempt to win that unprecedented 3rd straight Super Bowl title. Looking at the top 25 as a whole, we see that the only coach to appear on this list twice is Ted Marchibroda, and he did it with the same franchise, just in different cities. Coaches with an asterisk by their name were rookie head coaches in the NFL during the season in question. Those with a plus sign by their names were NFL rookies, but were previously head coaches at the college level. 15 of the NFL's 32 franchises are represented here, just less than half. Every current NFL division is represented, except for the NFC North. The Falcons, Saints, Patriots, and Jaguars each get 2 appearances, with the Patriots and Jaguars slotting theirs in back-to-back positions. The Rams appear 3 times, while the Colts lead the way by appearing 4 times. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video all the way to the near end, and for putting up with my voice, which is still very much in recovery. Show us the love by liking the video, sharing it, and subscribing to the channel. Ding that bell to be notified every time we release something new. Let me know what you think about all of this. Anybody on this list that surprised you? Was there someone you thought should have made the list but didn't? Which of the new hires for 2025 do you think has the best chance to break into this top 25? These 7 teams had an average C-score of worse than negative 14.5 last season, with only the Bears doing better than negative 8. So there is certainly room for improvement. Please share your thoughts on this or anything else you may have on your mind right down there in the comments section below. Thank you once again for joining us today, and until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.